Mess with my mind early this morning. Today is also the 98th anniversary of what? The Russian Revolution. That's right. I hope in 2 years, when it's the century anniversary, we can do something important, and fill a big hall on the 100th anniversary of the Russian Revolution. First thing I want to say is Malcolm X and Betty Shabazz, long live these wonderful revolutionaries. To have a hall named in your honor is a very small thing. There should be statues. There should be parks. There are parks and statues. There should be schools. There should be a holiday. But at least to have a hall where the community can come and meet, where revolutionaries and radicals like us can come and meet, especially those who are sworn to defend oppressed people and who understand the national question and do not put it second, third, or 10th, but put it first. It helps this community. So I'm glad that we're using this venue for this very, very wonderful conference. Are the Boston school bus drivers here? Not yet? Oh, gee. That's going to be an event, sisters and brothers. They're still on the bus. I think maybe a number of speakers who come up here will dedicate the conference, or at least their presentation, to a number of things. But I'd like to try this, to dedicate it to the Black Lives Matter uprising. I think that Malcolm and Betty Shabazz would approve of that. And certainly many of those, particularly the young people, black and some whites, who have come into this tremendous struggle that has shut down bridges and highways from coast to coast to stop the murder of black people. Either they knew about Malcolm before, they certainly know about him now. One of the things that the People's Power Assembly here in New York and elsewhere has been doing is working hard to solidify ourselves and help out in any way, form, or fashion this Black Lives Matter uprising and their rally call, shut them down. Shut it down. Want to get the police attention, the government's attention, the capitalist attention? Can't just have a picket line. Sometimes you gotta. Sometimes you just gotta. That's right. It's brave, brave activists. I don't know if you heard about this, but last week, Hillary Clinton went to Atlanta. It was an important trip. She went there to shore up her black support. And they held an event for her in a big university, Clark Atlanta, I think that's the name of it, university. And it was filled with black people, a lot of civil rights leaders. I won't go into the names, I might get it wrong, but the house was filled with a lot of leaders, mostly leaders from the past, not leaders from now. And she was coming to shore it up because, that's what they do. That's what the Democratic Party politicians do. You see them when they want your vote. But when the police are beating you up and shooting you or your child, you don't see them. You don't get your phone call returned. Surrounded by all of these black people, including John Lewis and maybe even Jesse Jackson and mayors and Anthony, what was the former mayor of Atlanta? Somebody help me. Anthony Young. So, Shut It Down Atlanta. A group called Shut It Down Atlanta. We haven't shut it down New York. Shut It Down Atlanta. About 20 black youth got up and started chanting, Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter. Now, to come into an event like that, you got to have some courage. An event like that, with all of those leaders, it was just incredible. I was so moved and impressed by it. That's the kind of spirit that's revolutionary, that's determined. We're not going to do it just when it's easy or obvious, like calling Trump a racist and calling NBC racist for allowing him to be on SNL tonight, which is a slap not only in Latinos and Latinas' faces, every progressive person, every anti-racist person on the face of this earth. It's an insult. And it goes to show you, in the final analysis, it's all about the dollars. It's all about the dollars. What a sick, bizarre Republican campaign. That you have Trump and that other guy, sounds like he's from the 13th century, leading the pack. It's a sign of the decay of imperialism. I don't know what it's a sign of. It needs to be analyzed. But I think it's a sign that things are falling apart. Things are not very good. What I liked about shutting down Atlanta, disrupting Hillary Clinton, is that it brought a dimension to the Black Lives Matter uprising that I think has always been there, but it sharpened it. I'm talking about class struggle. There was definitely some class struggle going on in that university ballroom. I don't know who realized it. I'm not even sure the people who disrupted it knew it, but it was definitely some class struggle. What kind of passion motivates people to do what these people did in Atlanta and what others have done? They don't even cover it anymore. There have been hundreds, thousands of arrests, many of them right here in New York. The police have gotten more brutal. They decided after a while to crack down. No more of this hands-off policy. Same thing in Baltimore. What has given these young people so much passion and so much determination? In some ways, you haven't seen this since ACTA. Those of you who are old enough to remember, where they would just be in your face. It's a similar thing, comrades and friends, sisters and brothers. They're trying to stop genocide. They are trying to stop genocide. And it's not just a phase. It's not just a temporary uprising. Something happens, a brutal murder of a black child, and we're upset, and we rebel, and then we go back to doing what we usually do, business as usual. This is not that. It will have its ups and downs, its highs and lows, but things will never be the same because there is a material basis for Black Lives Matter in the changes in the economy, in the globalized high-tech economy. What are we talking about? These murders are on the increase, and it's open season on black and brown people because under globalized capitalism, the bourgeoisie has found out that they don't need as much black cheap labor. There's too much of it. There's an excess of black cheap labor. And when the capitalists conclude that, that means that, they're going to do anything to you because you're a problem for them. That's the reason why they leave the black community in Baltimore and build up the inner city in a harbor. That's the reason for gentrification. That's the reason why schools close or privatize. And that's the reason why they're killing more of us. There are economic reasons behind this, which can be analyzed on a Marxist basis. It should be studied. Somebody should write a pamphlet or a book about it. I've read some good stuff about it. It's behind gentrification. It's behind the expansion of the prison industrial complex. Kill them, put them in jail, force them out. It's social and physical genocide based on changes in capitalism. I underscore changes because in many ways, what my few minutes of being up here is about is examining changes. Change is the law of life. How many of you have heard about dialectical materialism? Everything changes. Change is inevitable. Because change is inevitable, it's one of the reasons why one of the themes of this conference is putting socialist revolution back on the table. Why put it back? Why put it back? Curious formulation. Comrades and friends, it's been taken off. This is a sweeping generalization. I'm sure there are many in this country and around the world who believe themselves to be revolutionary. Some of them are in organizations. Some are looking for organizations. I hope they look this way. But in a general way, the working class movement and its leaders over the past 100 years, almost since the time of the Russian Revolution, have slowly but surely, to a large extent, taken socialist revolution off the table. How did this happen? Some of the reasons were setbacks. One of the early setbacks is when the Russian Revolution didn't expand into Europe, and Russia was left alone. That was a downer. Another setback was during the 30s, when the working class across the world was up in arms, so to speak, and it seemed like they were right on the precipice of revolution. But for whatever reasons, I'm not here to go into that, it didn't happen. Fascism and war won out, both here and in Europe and elsewhere. That was a setback. The collapse of the Soviet Union, another setback. And what these setbacks do, I don't want to dwell on them. Not here in Malcolm Shabazz Hall. I don't want to dwell on them. I just want to examine the impact. What it does to many is make them conclude that, well, socialist revolution is nice, but it's not going to happen in my lifetime, and I don't think it's going to happen in my great-grandchildren's lifetime. And they take it off the table, and they come up with a more limited objective, an objective that all of us support. Or the bus drivers, oh my goodness. The bus drivers are here. Yeah. The bus drivers are an exception. That's why they've been under vicious attack for 2 years when they have tried to fire the leaders of this tremendous union. What did they do? They did not take revolution off the table. And their stinking, rotten buzzard company knows that which is why they've been trying to get revolution out of that union. And they're going to fail. They're not going to win. We're going to win. There is nothing wrong. I don't want people to get the wrong impression. There's nothing wrong with fighting for reforms, fighting for a union, a good contract, decent wages, health insurance, Social Security, free public school, at least up until, the 11th to 12th grade or something like that. All the things they're trying to take back. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. We could call that the limited program. But you can't just have the limited program and take off the table the maximum program, which is socialist revolution. Somewhere along the line, many begin to think that capitalism was so strong and seemed to be winning crucial battles that surely that must mean it's going to be around forever. And therefore, the best thing that we can do, fight for reforms and sort of accommodate ourselves to reality, the permanence of capitalism. This is a problem in our movement, and I hope that our party, as it has been doing for a long, long time, but only on a more conscious and aggressive level, fights against this tendency in the movement, because we cannot go anywhere with just a limited program. We cannot do what we need to do with just a limited program. Everything changes. Things do not stay the same. It doesn't seem that way. It seems and feels like everything stays the same, but that's an illusion. Everything is changing. This is the law of dialectical materialism. We've said it over and over and over and over. High technology and globalization, which are really one and the same, have rendered the capitalist economy in a state of permanent overproduction. Let me say that again. Permanent overproduction. That doesn't necessarily account for every event or phenomenon in the capitalist economy. But as an overriding reality, it's the overproduction. Can they fix it? No. Will it be a matter of time? No, they will never be able to fix it. This is what we mean when we say capitalism at a dead end. We've got to teach more revolutionaries that even while they're fighting on a local basis, they've got to have a larger perspective, even if it's way off on the horizon or not even on the horizon yet. And that is a new society. That is a revolutionary orientation, a revolutionary perspective. We got to bring that back, comrades, sisters, and brothers. It's desperately needed. Part of doing that is convincing people that things change. They don't stay the same. So whatever you're doing, wherever you're doing it, and I know it's so important, and most of us tend to be preoccupied with what we're fighting on a local basis. It's all consuming. We wish there were more of us. You have to continue doing that in every city, everywhere. Activists and revolutionaries are doing the same thing in every part of the planet. But don't lose sight of the fact that there are things that are happening that may not be clear to you, but are sort of up there a little bit. You have to look a little further. There are things that are happening that will affect what you're doing either now or sooner or later. And that is the capitalist economy on a worldwide basis falling apart. Actually, if it weren't for the Federal Reserve and other central banks across the world pumping trillions of dollars into the financial markets, the world would be in a depression. Now, one needs to make a qualification there. They're not pumping the money into what people need, like decent paying jobs and free health care and affordable housing and daycare. No, they're pumping it into the market. So that creates a buffer for the financial class, for that oligarchy. And if it were not for that, there'd be a depression. But here's the latest news, and they know it. Even that will not last forever. Even that will not last forever. What is coming? We do not have a crystal ball. We cannot predict the precise date, but there is an earthquake. Actually, I got this from Sarah Flounder's article. You heard an article, this week's paper. An earthquake is coming. An earthquake is coming. I'm talking about the crash of capitalism. I wish we could predict it and prepare for it in a very precise way, but we can't do that. So while you're fighting at home, remember, there are bigger things happening that affect you, and something is coming. This deepening worldwide capitalist crisis. And we have to be orienting more and more towards that. I want to conclude by saying a little bit about the elections. Not their elections, to hell with their elections. What a bizarre puppet show that the capitalist media and billions of dollars are forcing down the throats of workers who are already suffering. They don't need to see that. Put on a baseball game, really. It would be an improvement. I want to say a few words about the party's election campaign. It's not my job to give the main talk. My comrade Teresa Gutierrez is going to do that sometime soon, I believe. But I want to say this. We're going to have an election campaign. And I want to use my final seconds up here to throw out a couple of ideas. I don't think it should be a routine campaign. I think it should be an out-of-the-box revolutionary campaign. Sure, we'll have a 10-point program that will hit all the right points. Jobs for everyone, housing, all the things, women, anti-racist, LGBTQ, it'll touch all that. That'll be the minimal program. People need that. Workers will look for that. It must be there. But in our election campaign, I would favor us also having a maximum program. I would also favor us saying that capitalism cannot be reformed. It cannot be reformed. I think that people would like that. I think that it would resonate and that it has to be abolished. The only question is who's going to do it and how. I may be, rambling wild here, but I think it'd be an interesting idea if part of the job of our candidates was to call on people to rise up, not just to tell them about a program. What can I do as a candidate? I'm telling you to rise up. Form people's power assemblies because the struggle is coming. Form them by the hundreds and thousands. Abolish the system. Abolish the death penalty. One of the things we're going to do, we're considering doing it. Let me put it on that basis, is setting up a people's shadow government where we have people's ministers running along with the candidates in the top of the ticket. Maybe we can have something like a people's minister of justice, or a people's minister of women's liberation, or a people's minister of LGBTQ liberation, a people's minister of international solidarity. Maybe we could even convince Pam Africa to be one of these ministers. I'm talking out of my, don't pay me no mind. Pam's right up here. That will underscore the fact that we don't think that elections is how you change things. We need a new government and a whole new system. And it's not too soon to imbue the masses with that notion. It's not too soon. Another thing, and this is very necessary, one of the things we should take away from the Bernie Sanders campaign, I'm not going to go into how he says he's a socialist, but he's really not. And actually, there's really not that much difference between him and Clinton, And any of you who have watched him and studied the two of them, you know that I'm speaking the honest truth. That's right. But one thing that he has done, and it's a breakthrough, he has brought socialism, the idea of it, into the minds of people. I don't think, at least in my lifetime, for a long, long time, a major candidate, one of the bourgeois parties, has been in any way identified with socialism. This is a good thing. One of the goals of our campaign will be to show people really what socialism is about. There are socialists and there are revolutionary socialists. We will show them the real thing. I think that if activists and revolutionaries and socialists and communists and even anarchists around the country, I think if they were really thinking and they were really reflecting upon what it means that Sanders has done this, they would want to come together on a very serious basis and explore whether we can have some revolutionary socialist unity. Now's the time. I don't know if there's the basis for it. I don't know what other organizations feel about it. One of the problems we have is that when things have been difficult for such a long time, organizations are like turtles. They sort of stick their head in the shawl and they forget about, everybody outside, and, it's called sectarianism, But we hope, whether it's among organizations or whether it's among just individuals, independents, that this new life into the word socialism is the basis for trying to galvanize some revolutionary socialist unity. And I think our campaign, our election campaign, should be used for that purpose. Thank you very much. Free Mumia, long live Malcolm X and Betty Shabazz.